Hi, this is a help video for the year, the service firm question from the year 2014. Um, this video is intended to be used after you have already learned how to do the basic service firm account question from 2003. And this is just going to show you one or two new workings in the year 2014, this question. So let's see if we can isolate those new workings, guys, by reading down through the question. It says the following were included in the assets and liabilities of Serenity Gym and Health Center at the start of 2013. And you have the buildings and grounds, equipment, all of that. The only new thing in this top sentence is there is a 5% investment of 40,000. And you do have investment income here on the money inside. But we need to figure out, is that the full entitlement or is there an amount due at the end of the year? We'll do that in a moment. The other challenging little working in here, everything else is as we've seen before perhaps, but when we get down to the depreciations, obviously you still have your 3 years accumulated depreciation at the start. That's a feature of all service firm account questions. But when you get down to the depreciation down here, it tells you about buildings of 2%, vehicles of 10%, equipment of 10%, vehicles of 20%. However, this sentence here, it says that on the first day of July 2013, a vehicle which cost 40,000 way back in 2010 was traded in against a new vehicle costing 59,000, and there was an allowance of 9,000 given on the old vehicle. So that's going to be a disposal, and that's going to affect our depreciation because it happens halfway through the year on the 1st of July, 6 months in. And also it's going to give us a profit or a loss on that disposal. It's going to have quite a serious effect on our vehicles figures throughout the question. So I'm going to teach you how to do that in this video. There is a revaluation here on buildings, but we've seen that before. So as we, and just to double check what we're being asked to do. So you're being asked to do the company's reserves, as per normal, the profit and loss account from the shop, which of course is working number one anyway. The profit and loss account itself, the balance sheet, and there is a theory part here, part E, which we'll have a look at when we get to the end. So as regards the answer here, I'm just going to put up one or two. I'm not going to show you all the workings because this is your task to complete this. However, I am going to give you one or two numbers. When you do the health food shop, this of course should say 2014. When you do the health food shop, you will get a profit of 4,500. Now, of course, then you will have to go and alter the wages and the light and heat and the insurance and whatever else is referenced in that working. I think it's adjustment number 4 in the question. So you're going to have to work on that. But your answer is 4,500. Your next answer, client's fees, will be 330,800, and that's your client's fees working. And now I'd like to show you the investment interest received working here. Now, investment interest received, the €1,200 is how much we have received in the bank. That's going to bring you back up to here for a moment. So €1,200 is how much we have received, but of course we know that we are entitled to 5% of 40,000. So therefore, if you do that on your calc, you put down 1,200 here. There is no amount due at the start of the year. If there was, you would subtract it. I have tended here to, I'll skip this line for a moment, and you go down here and you say how much should the investment interest actually yield? Well, it should be 40,000 by 5%, which of course is €2,000. Now, if you're entitled to €2,000, but so far in your bank you have only received 1,200, then there is an amount of investment interest due at the end of the year, and that investment interest due at the end of the year is 800. Now, the 2,000 itself is an income, and the 800 is an income due at the end of the year, which of course is a current asset. That's a straightforward little work in there to do with investment interest. We've talked about the shop profit, we've talked about the client's fees. Now I'd like us to talk about depreciation. And I'm going to do the depreciation on all three assets here just while I'm at it to help you along. So first off, we must do this. I call this work in 7. Perhaps it'll be work in 8 or 9, depending on your prior work. The depreciation for the 3 years prior to 2013. Well, you have buildings, and at the start of the year, they are 620,000. 2% by 3 years, that's 37,200. Equipment, 70,000 by 10% by 3 years is 21,000. Vehicles, 90,000 by 20% by 3 years is 54. Now those three numbers you subtract from the asset value in the reserves or in part A. So in part A of the question, which I have not written down here, but you'll be putting in your buildings, you'll be putting in your buildings, and of course your buildings number is 620, but it's not really 620 because you have 37,200 existing depreciation, so therefore you're actually putting in 582 800 in there, and you do the same for the other two assets. Okay. Now, vehicles and equipment. Then at the end of the year, at the end of the year, we have changed this situation slightly. Buildings at the end of the year is 850 by 2% by 12 over 12. How did I get that 850? Well, if we look back to the question, that is your 620 at the start, plus we built an extension of 230. So that's where you get that 850. And when you get that, you get 2% of that, and of course that's 17,000. Now you will be writing that off or eradicating that when you do your evaluation on buildings. I think you're going to revalue them up to 900,000, but I'll let you do that in your own time. How did we get this equipment of 85? Well, the equipment at the start was 70, and then you have a purchase of equipment of 15, so that brings that up to 85. And you go 85,000 by 10%, and that of course is 8,500. These are expenses, and you would add these to the accumulated to get your balance sheet depreciation at the end of the year. Of course, buildings will subsequently be revalued, but that equipment, that 8,500, will be added on to the 21,000, so that in the balance sheet, your depreciation for buildings, let me go down here and show you that depreciation for buildings will be 29,500. Now, however, vehicles is the tricky one, the one that we wanted to have a little look at. Why is it difficult? Well, because halfway during the year, we switched a vehicle. Okay. So halfway during the year, it says a vehicle which cost 40,000 on the first day of January 2010 was traded in against a new vehicle costing 59,000. An allowance of 9,000 was given on the old vehicle. And of course, the remainder of the money had to be paid from the bank, and there's the remainder. You see that 50,000 check? That is, along with the 9, how we bought the new vehicle. Now, so actually our vehicles have increased, haven't they increased by 19,000 halfway through the year? We sold one for 40 and we bought one for 59. So therefore, to get our depreciation, you can do the first 6 months at the status quo of 90,000 by 20%, but only for the first 6 months, which gives you 9,000. And then the second 6 months is 109. Now, how did I get 109? That is 90 minus the 40 plus the 59. Take out the old and add in the new to get 109. and that number by 20% by, again, the other 6 months gives you that 10,900. You add the two 6-month periods together to get your 12-month figure, and the 12-month figure is 19,900. These three numbers are profit and loss expenses. Now, we still need to do our actual disposal. Get rid of that for a moment. Our actual disposal of the vehicle. Well, you put into a disposal account how much the depreciation was, or sorry, how much the cost of the vehicle was, 40,000, and now the depreciation on its lifetime. Well, that is 40,000 by 20% by 3 years and 6 months, which is 42 over 12 months. How did I get that 3 years and 6 months? Well, if we go back to the question, we will see that that is from the day you bought it, which is the 1st of January 2010, until the day you sold it, which is the 1st of July 2013. That's a full 3 years, 2010, 2011, 2012, and 6 months into 2013. So when you do this sum, 40,000 by 20% by 42 over 12, that's 28,000. That's how much the depreciation. So that means the vehicle was actually worth 12 when we disposed of it. We only got an allowance of 9. So therefore, when you balance this, you'll actually find that we made a loss of 3,000 on the deal. There's a loss of 3,000 on the deal. And that loss is an expense in our accounts. That's another profit and loss expense. Then finally, we need to look at the depreciation in our fixed assets. Well, this is your opening position from the top sentence of the question. You have 90,000 and you take away this 54. And that is your cost and your depreciation. Now, if we take out the old vehicle, where do you get those? Well, this is the vehicle you disposed of. And when it drives down the avenue and leaves you and leaves your business, the depreciation goes with it. The faulty clutch and the dodgy steering and the worn tires. So therefore you take out the 40 and you take out the 28 depreciation. And you add in the new vehicle, which is 59,000, that's the new one you bought, and you add in the new depreciation on all vehicles for the year 2013, which is that 19,900. And then when you total that, there is your balance sheet entry for the vehicle's fixed asset. And you just lift those numbers and you put them in as your fixed asset. Now let's have a quick look at some of the answers so that you guys will know what to work towards. The statement of opening reserves is 207,100. The profit and loss balance is 364,140. And the balance sheet is 918,340 and 918,340. We'll just have a quick look at the theory. Remember the theory question. It said the owners have proposed a 15% increase in clients' fees to help clear the bank overdraft. What arguments would you make against this proposal? So they're looking to put up their fees to clear the bank overdraft. They have a significant overdraft here of 135,000. However, the answer is going to refer to the fact that look at some of these non-recurring expenses. They repaid a loan for 56,000. They bought equipment for 15. They built an extension for 230, and they bought a new vehicle for 50. That's about, when you add that up, that's around about 350,000 euro, roughly speaking, which is non-recurring expenditure, which does not usually happen, but happened this year. So the answer is going to refer to that, and it's going to say the center is profitable, profit of 157,000, and has generated enough cash to clear the overdraft without taking any remedial action. In other words, without putting up the prices. This 15% increase in clients' fees will only raise 49,000. But of course, based on this year's figures, the overdraft would have been cleared next year without taking any remedial action. The centre has repaid the loan, it has capital expenditure of this significant amount, all non-recurring expenditure. That's the key point here.